Friday night, the check hits the table. 2 phones come out. Yours doesn't move. 10 years ago, you made $38,400. So did Jonah. So did Tessa. Same building, same rent split, same broke. Somewhere between then and now, one of you stopped trying to look rich. Nobody at this table clocked it happening. The bill just did. 23. So is Jonah. So is Tessa. $38,400 a year before taxes take their cut. After taxes, closer to $2,600 a month. Split 3 ways on rent, that comes to $650 each. A 2-bedroom you turned into a 3-bedroom with a curtain and a promise nobody wrote down. The apartment smells like whatever Jonah cooked last, usually something with too much garlic. There's a whiteboard on the fridge for chores that nobody follows past week 2. It doesn't matter. This is just what 23 looks like when your paycheck barely covers the version of adulthood you're all faking. Friday nights, the check lands and 3 phones hit the table at the same time. $14.33 each, rounded up to $15, because nobody wants to be the one who sends a Venmo request for 67 cents. There's a delivery app discount code. Jonah found it, buried in some promotional email he wasn't supposed to open at work. It expires at the end of the month. All 3 of you use it before it dies. Whoever's broke that week gets first dibs. Nobody tracks who used it last. You do your groceries at Aldi now, not because someone told you to, just because the math worked out to about $30 less per trip. And $30 is $30 when your direct deposit hits on the 1st and 16th and has to stretch both times. You open a Roth IRA this year. $200. It sits there the way a plant sits in a room with no windows. Technically alive, not doing much that you can see. Neither Jonah nor Tessa has one yet. Tessa says she'll get to it once she's making real money. Jonah just laughs and asks if it's some kind of pyramid thing. You explain it once. He forgets by the following Tuesday. The bank barely registers any of you. Balances climb a little on payday, thin out by the 3rd week, the way they do for almost everyone your age, standing at this exact line, in this exact kind of apartment, ordering the same $13 pad thai off the same expiring code. $200 doesn't feel like anything's sitting in that account. It isn't supposed to yet. It's not the money. It's the decision underneath it. Made once, quietly, while everyone else is still deciding whether Roth IRA is a word worth Googling. You set up an automatic transfer this year, $150 a month straight into the Roth IRA the day after payday clears. You don't decide to do this every month. You decide it once in about 4 minutes on your phone, and then it just keeps happening whether you're paying attention or not. The gray jacket from Marshall's is in its 3rd winter now. Nobody comments on it because nobody's noticed it's the same jacket. You cook most nights, not out of some grand discipline, just because a Chipotle bowl runs $11.75 with tax, and that math stopped making sense somewhere around February. Jonah leases a car this year, a Civic, dark gray, $420 a month for 36 months. Insurance runs him another $167. He shows it off in the parking lot on a Tuesday, and it does look good under the streetlight. You tell him that, you mean it. Tessa moves into a 1-bedroom with a balcony that faces the Walgreens parking lot. $1,650 a month, more than double what she used to pay for a 1/3 of a shared lease. From the right angle at golden hour, you genuinely can't tell it's a parking lot. She gets the photo. 340 likes. None of this is a mistake, either one of theirs. A car isn't a red flag. A balcony isn't a red flag. These are just choices 2 24-year-olds are allowed to make with money they earned. You made a different one. That's the whole difference this year. Not smarter, not better, just different. Your Roth sits at $2,600 by December. It's not a number you'd bring up over drinks. It doesn't change how a teller treats you or how fast customer service picks up when you call. It's just a figure in an app you glance at on Sunday nights, more out of habit than excitement, the way you'd check a weather app for a city you don't live in. Tax season hits in April. Yours is simple, a W-2 standard deduction done in 20 minutes on a free filing site. Jonah's takes longer because of some 1099 gig work he forgot he did. Tessa gets a refund and puts half of it toward the balcony furniture she's been eyeing since move-in. You put yours straight into the brokerage account. Nobody asks what you did with it. You don't bring it up. Friday dinner. The check still splits 3 ways, still close to even, still somewhere around $14 ahead. Nothing about tonight looks different from a year ago. But something already is. It's just too quiet still for any of you to hear it. Jonah's Instagram looks better than his bank account this year. So does Tessa's, probably, though you're the one who notices it, standing between both of them in every group photo, feeling like the one who's falling behind. His new place has a rooftop deck that the building shares with 4 other units. Hers has that balcony. Yours still has a curtain wall separating your room from what used to be a living room. And a landlord who hasn't fixed the garbage disposal since March. Someone at a party asks where you live. You say the cross streets, not the building name. There's a difference, and you feel it even if they don't. You're 25, then 26. The Roth sits at $6,100. The emergency fund holds $3,200, built one automatic transfer at a time. Neither number means much across a dinner table. You can't screenshot an index fund and get 300 likes for it. Jonah takes a trip to Cabo in March. $2,100 on a card he's still paying down from Christmas. He posts 12 photos over 4 days. You like every one of them, and you mean it. The trip looks genuinely good. Tessa gets promoted, upgrades her phone within the month, and starts talking about a car she doesn't need yet but wants badly enough that the wanting basically counts as the purchase already happening. You're still on the same phone, screen cracked near the corner, a crack you stopped noticing sometime last spring. Someone asks what's new with you at dinner. You say not much. That's true, and also not the whole truth. What's new is invisible, automatic, and doesn't photograph well. This is the part that stings, a little, if you let it sit too long. By every number that matters in 20 years you're ahead of both of them. By every number a photo can capture, you're behind. Jonah notices the jacket this year finally. Still got that thing? Not unkind. You laugh? You still got that thing. Nobody at that table understands yet that the person who looks richest is rarely the person who is. It's just arithmetic nobody can see from across a booth, hidden inside an app none of them have opened. You don't correct anyone. You order the cheaper appetizer, split the guac 3 ways instead of 2, and let the night move on without a word about any of it. 5 years of the transfer. No windfall, no startup, no crypto story you'd tell at a bar. Just $22,000 sitting in the portfolio and $6,000 in an emergency fund you've come close to touching twice and never actually needed. Nobody handed you either number. You fed them $150, then $200, then $250 a month, and somewhere around year 3 you stopped checking every week because checking stopped producing any feeling worth chasing. Tessa texts in February. You booked the flight yet? A group trip the 3 of you have been talking about since New Year's. Jonah's bringing whoever he's seeing this year, which changes every few months, but the group chat name never does. Yeah, you type back. Booked it this morning. You don't wait for the next paycheck to say that. You don't run numbers in your head first. You just say yes, on the spot, and mean it. Jonah books his 2 weeks later, right after payday clears. Tessa splits hers into 3 installments through the airline. 0% if she pays on time, which she always does, mostly. Nobody thinks twice about how anyone else booked theirs. You don't mention you paid for yours in full, same day, no plan required. It's not a story. It's a Tuesday morning, and a card that didn't need help. The portfolio doesn't feel like $22,000 most days. It feels smaller, somehow, because you've watched it move enough times to know it will. Down $600 one month, back up $900 the next. You've stopped flinching at the red months. That part took longer to learn than the saving did. Your W-2 shows a decent bump this year, enough that your refund covers a chunk of the trip on its own, filed away before anyone at the table even starts talking about it. Nobody knows the numbers, nobody's asked. You haven't offered, and it's never once felt like hiding. At the airport, waiting for the group's flight, Jonah complains about the $35 bag fee like it's a personal insult. You already paid yours online last week and forgot the amount. That's the whole difference this year, really. Not what you have, just what you no longer have to think about before saying yes. Same restaurant chain, different location this time, closer to Jonah's new place, which is closer to downtown, which comes with a parking garage that charges $8 an hour. The check lands, $187 total, 4 entrees, a bottle of wine nobody remembers ordering. 3 phones come out, the same as they have for 6 years running. Jonah doesn't reach for his. Can you just get mine? I'll Venmo you Friday. He says it easily, the way you say things you've said 100 times before without consequence. You say sure. You mean it. It's $46, it's nothing. But something sits differently tonight. Not the money, the moment. 6 years ago, this exact scene ran the other direction. You were the one asking Tessa to float you until Friday, and she did, no hesitation, because you were both standing at the same line back then, and the line didn't care who covered who that week. This isn't that. You can't pinpoint when it stopped being that. The portfolio's at $34,000 now. Jonah mentions his card balance sometimes, the way people mention traffic. A fact, not a confession. Tessa's still paying down that car in monthly installments through her bank's app. Nobody's in trouble. This is just what 29 looks like when 3 people who split rent evenly for years take different roads through the same stretch of time. You pay the $46 and let the conversation drift to a show everyone's watching, a manager Jonah can't stand. Nobody gives a speech about what just happened. The check just landed the way it always does, and for the first time in 6 years, it didn't split evenly. Walking to the garage, Tessa brings up opening some kind of retirement account, half joking that she's probably behind. You say maybe, and don't push past that. The jacket's retired to a drawer now, replaced by one that costs more but doesn't advertise it. Nobody would clock the difference across a booth. Nothing about tonight looks different on the surface. Same order, same 4 chairs, same parking garage receipt shoved in a cup holder. But the bill knows something none of you have said out loud yet. The portfolio crossed $61,000 this year. You max the Roth for the first time, $7,000, spread across 12 transfers you barely register, leaving your account anymore. Tessa calls on a Tuesday, not a text, an actual call, which tells you something before she even says hello. I need you to explain the Roth thing, like, actually explain it. You laugh, not at her, just at the shift. 6 years ago, you were the one asking questions nobody around you could answer. Now you're on the other end of one. You walk her through it over 20 minutes. Contribution limits, why the growth is tax-free instead of just tax-deferred, why 31 still counts as early enough. She's typing while you talk. You can hear it through the phone. How'd you even figure this out? Didn't figure out much, just didn't stop. It's not modesty. You've said the line enough times now to know it's just true. Jonah asks something different a few weeks later, over beers after a Sunday football thing. Not about investing, about a spreadsheet he built for a side business idea, some resale thing he's been running out of his garage. You look it over. It's rough, but not bad. 2 numbers don't add up. He fixes them by Wednesday. Neither of them says it out loud, but the way they talk to you has shifted. You're not the friend who understood being broke anymore. You've turned into the friend people call when they want the boring version of an answer, the one that's actually true. The emergency fund sits at $11,000, fully funded, untouched most of the year. Checking it doesn't come from anxiety these days, closer to habit. The way you'd glance at a gas gauge you already know reads full. At dinner that Friday, someone brings up index funds unprompted. A table that used to only talk about who owed whom, now circling actual questions. You answer a few, don't lecture, keep it boring on purpose, because boring is usually the true version, and people only ask for it once they're ready to hear it. Same restaurant, same 4 chairs. Tip still gets rounded up the same way it always has. But the questions crossing that table tonight aren't the questions from 6 years ago. And none of you says that part out loud either. Big spender, Jonah says it laughing, setting his beer down, nodding at the flight you just mentioned booking without checking the price first. It lands fine. He says it again a month later, different context, same words, and it lands a little less fine, though you can't quite explain why to yourself, let alone to him. He's planning a trip this year. Cancun, 5 nights, a resort that comes out to $1,400 a head if the group locks in by March. He drops the link in the chat with a countdown emoji. You don't commit. Not because $1,400 would hurt. It wouldn't. You just don't want to be the reason the trip gets more expensive if someone else needs a payment plan. And you don't want your yes to be the thing that makes the rest of the table feel behind. You say you might have work that week. Everyone at the table probably knows that's not really true. Nobody pushes on it. You haven't checked the portfolio in close to a month. That's new this year. Not avoidance, just something closer to trust, the kind where checking stopped being interesting a while back. A raise comes through in April. You don't bring it up over dinner. Tessa finds out anyway through a mutual friend, the way these things travel through a friend group, whether you want them to or not. She doesn't say anything directly. She just asks, the following Friday, half joking, if you're getting the appetizer this time. You do. Nobody mentions the raise again. You catch yourself ordering the cheaper entree at a place where the price difference means nothing to you anymore. Habit, maybe? Or some instinct not to be the reason the night costs more than it used to. Nobody at that table is doing anything wrong. Not Jonah, not Tessa, not you. This is just 8 years of 3 people who split rent down to the cent, taking different roads through the same stretch of time, without a single dramatic scene marking the distance between any of you. The jokes were never really about money. They just borrowed the word, because none of you had a better one yet for what was actually happening. Your phone lights up at 11:42 p.m. Jonah, hey, you up? You call instead of texting back. He picks up on the second ring, voice flat in a way you haven't heard from him before. Car got repoed this morning. He'd been rolling payments across 2 credit cards for over a year, minimum only, telling himself it was temporary. The way it's always temporary, right up until a tow truck shows up outside his building at 7 a.m. $14,000 behind, once you add it all up. He tried a crypto thing 18 months back to catch up faster. Put in $3,000, watched it drop to $1,100 within a season, pulled what was left. Never mentioned it until tonight. He stays after dinner the following Friday. Everyone else heads out. Just the 2 of you, and a check already paid. How'd you actually do it? Not the polite version, the real one. You don't have a clean answer because there isn't one. You tell him about the $150 transfer from a decade ago. The gray jacket. The trips you didn't take early on, not out of restriction, just some quiet math you did once and never stopped doing. None of it sounds impressive, said out loud. That's sort of the point of it. 2 weeks later, he asks to borrow $2,000. No terms. Just, can you help until the next check clears? You send it that night. No note attached. 10 years ago, you were the one asking Tessa to cover a late rent payment, $340, and she sent it without a word. You paid her back 3 weeks later, and neither of you brought it up again. The names moved. The math didn't. Jonah pays you back in 6 weeks, in 2 installments, unprompted. You almost tell him not to bother. You don't, because paying back clearly matters more to him than it does to you. He starts putting $300 a month into an index fund the week after. Nothing dramatic, just the same boring kind you told him about that night. Nobody at the table that Friday knows any of this happened. It's not a story either of you tells. It's just a text thread. Closed out. Done. Your company announces layoffs on a Wednesday in June. 40 people, no warning beyond a calendar invite titled Team Update that everyone already knows isn't good news. You're not on the list. You still spend 3 days waiting for a follow-up email that never comes, running the numbers anyway, the way you can't help but do even when you don't need to. 12 months of expenses sit in that emergency fund, untouched since you built it. You never end up needing a single dollar of it. It just sits there, doing its actual job for once. Not the saving, the not needing. Your mother's medical bill lands in March, $4,200. Not catastrophic, not nothing either. You cover it the same week, quietly, The way you covered Jonah's $2,000 2 years back. Nobody at the table hears about either one. Tessa's been putting money into that Roth for 4 years now, ever since the Tuesday phone call. It's not enormous, somewhere in the low 30s, but it's hers, built the same slow way yours was, and she brings it up herself this year, unprompted, mentioning she bumped her contribution after a raise. Here's the part nobody tells you about this stretch. You've gone far enough from where you started that the version of yourself splitting $14.33 down to the cent feels like someone you used to know rather than someone you were. But you haven't gone far enough into anywhere else to belong there either. Same restaurant most Fridays. Same 4 chairs. The big spender jokes stopped a while back. Not because you asked them to, just because they ran out of something to bounce off of. You could afford a different city at this point. You don't take it. Not loyalty exactly, more that this table is still the one place nobody's impressed by any of it, where you're just the friend who's decent with a spreadsheet and picks up a check sometimes without turning it into a thing. Tessa asks, over dinner, if you'd ever actually stop working. You say maybe someday, and mean it more than you expect to when it leaves your mouth. You've gone too far from the beginning to go back. Not far enough into anywhere else yet to belong. Jonah calls on a Sunday, 2 years after the $2,000, 2 years after the tow truck. His index fund sits around $19,000 now. Small by your spreadsheet standards, not small to him. I get it now, he says. Why did you keep that ugly gray jacket forever? It wasn't ugly. It was just paid for. Tessa's further along than either of you expected. Her Roth crossed 6 figures last spring, 4 years after that Tuesday phone call. Boosted by a promotion she funneled straight into contributions instead of a lease upgrade. She mentions it the same way she'd mention traffic. Not bragging, just a fact now, the way your numbers used to be a fact nobody heard. Same restaurant, that Friday. 5 chairs instead of 4. Tessa brought someone new this time. Same pizza, ordered without anyone discussing it, because some things about this table stopped needing updates years ago. The check lands. $212. You reach for it before either phone comes out. Nobody argues. Jonah says thanks plainly, the way you thank someone who's done this before and will again. Tessa doesn't say anything, just reaches over and covers the tip instead, her own quiet version of the same gesture, and neither of you makes it a thing. Nobody at the table calls you the rich one anymore. It stopped being a topic around the same time it stopped being new. What you have isn't really about the number, even though the number's real. 7 figures away from the $200 that once sat there feeling embarrassed to exist. What you have is a Friday where nobody's calculating anything before saying yes, and 2 friends across the table who finally understand why you never did either. Somewhere else tonight. 3 23-year-olds split a $43 check down to the cent, rounding up because nobody wants to send a request for change. One of them opens an account this week. $200. It sits there feeling like nothing. They won't agree 10 years from now on when it stopped feeling like nothing. The check's already being written.